Welcome to the Contagious Code podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I'm Tejas Kumar, and I've been building on the web for over 20 years at places like Vercel, Spotify, Zeta, and more. Today on the podcast, my guest is Santosh Yadav. For the second time on the podcast, we had a previous episode with Santosh where we talk a lot about his journey and the Angular and NX ecosystems. You can find that episode in the show notes. Today is part two. Santosh is by far one of the most inspirational people in the entire tech industry. He is a core contributor to Angular, to NX, to a bunch of open source projects. He is a GitHub star. He's a Microsoft MVP. He's a Google developer expert. He's a lot of those things. Above and beyond that, Santosh is a husband and a father, but also comes from the slums in India. Like he's a person who was literally living in slums and saw open source as a vehicle to a better life and got involved in open source software and now lives in Germany outside of slums in a home that he lives in, like an actual wonderful, beautiful home in a little village with his family, and it's the best life ever. We covered that in the previous episode. Since then, Santosh has been promoted in his work to being a staff engineer, and today's discussion is about that. What's it gonna take for you to become a staff engineer or to get promoted? The big trend in tech today is instead of getting promoted, you just leave, you quit. I haven't stayed at a job for more than 2 years because it's easier to just go work somewhere else instead of get a promotion for a variety of reasons. But in our discussion today, we talk with Santosh deeply about what does it take? What does it take to go from being an engineer to senior engineer to staff engineer? We also talk about should you go into management or not. Previously, Santosh was stepping from a senior engineer to a manager role, and that burned him out, and he realized, I don't even like management. And so we discover the nuance there. Since then, also, Santosh has developed diabetes type 2. In fact, he's been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and as in response to that, has taken up running. Santosh previously couldn't even walk, couldn't even run more than like half a kilometer. Now just completed his first half marathon, 21 kilometers. He's come a long way. And we talk about, as a developer, how do you do that? How do you level up your career, but also your health? How do you go from I'm not able to run and I have diabetes to I'm doing half marathon? And he's doing 3 half marathons this year. How do you do that? And we talk about shoe choosing. We talk about Garmin. We talk about health metrics and monitoring. We talk about recovery from his anecdotal experience, which may be similar to all of ours as developers. And so whether you're interested in maximizing health, whether you're interested in community impact, which we also talk about, he's quite active in the Angular and other communities, or whether you want to level up your career, this episode has something for you. Additionally, I'm working on a solo episode about the best ways to maximize health as a developer. That will come out soon. So if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, do subscribe on either YouTube or Apple or Spotify to be notified of that episode. Now, this is obviously very much separate to my day job. And the way we can make this sustainable is through partners and sponsors. If you'd like to partner with or sponsor the podcast, leave me a message. There's a link in the show notes. Let's take a moment to acknowledge our current partner, and then we can move on with the episode. The Contagious Code podcast is partnered with Code Crafters. Code Crafters is an excellent way to level up your coding skills. How it works is you choose a programming language like Rust, Python, JavaScript, and you choose a developer tool that developers use, things like Docker or Git or Redis. And what they'll do is they'll hold your hand as you build the tool from scratch in the language that you've chosen. And so you get better at tools like Redis, Docker, and Git, and the language you choose, like JavaScript, Rust, or Python, and you essentially grow 2 skills at the same time with guidance. It's a great way to do it. There's a generous free tier, but if you want to pay less, there's a big discount if you follow the link in the show notes. That's tej.as/codecrafters. Thanks so much for sticking around. Here's my discussion with Santosh Yadav. Santosh Yadav, welcome. Second time on the Contagious Code podcast.
Yeah, I'm honored. I think, it's second time, and it's always good to see you.
It's such a privilege to have people on more than once. It means the guest experience was probably positive, so I'm super excited.
It's like I always love to talk to you, even like whenever we meet at conferences, and with your podcast, I see like amazing guests every time, and you have been doing amazing stuff, man.
Thanks. Yeah, there's no doubt today's guest is also equally amazing. I'd love to start talking about your recent promotion, which congrats, by the way. But I mean, in the previous episode, we'll put a link in the show notes. We talked about sort of your journey from living in the slums to Germany, but the story at that point in time was not over, and there's still more to be written. So, to catch people up, what happened last time was, and you can tell me, you can fill in any blanks I may have. You were on a road trip across all your offices with your company. I think that's kind of cool that they do that. And I believe it was Munich, where you got this message that you've been promoted now to a staff engineer. Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think what people are hoping to get from this podcast is how they can level up. I think it's a big jump from slums to Germany, but it's also a big jump from I'm an engineer to now I'm a staff engineer. So I'd love to unpack that and maybe extract, like, how can people become staff engineers? How can they level up their careers like you have?
So, I think you're talking about the post which I actually did on LinkedIn and as well as X. And thanks again for the congratulations. So it's when I joined Celonis like 2 years ago, I had no idea like what about my next role or what I'm going to do there, because generally, people have this expectation that once you're a senior engineer, probably your next move would be some kind of management stuff, right? And even I was not aware of this roles like staff and principal. I had heard about it, like this is a new role which is growing in the organization. And good thing is like after just joining Celonis, it was just 2 months, and then I started like all this traveling to conferences and everything, and then I ended up wondering what's next. I mean, I'm doing this, I love the stuff I'm doing, and suddenly from like I was at not a very good place, right, where I was struggling, and we talked about this during our last podcast as well, to a place which looks nice, like which seems nice, and there are nice people, and then thought about uh, why not to stay for a longer time here? Because my career, if I look at my career, there is only one organization where I worked for 5 years, and then the last like there is another one organization where I worked for 2 years, and that's it. And then there is nothing like above 2 years. But at Celonis, I thought like I want to stay longer. It looks like the people are really nice, and the kind of work I have and the opportunities which I'm getting, right, to speak at conferences, travel without worrying much about my. I mean, of course, I have to finish my work, but I can manage that. I'm able to manage my work life as well as my communities and family and everything. So I ended up talking to my manager and said, "Look, I don't want to become a manager because I tried this 10 years ago." And I did that for 2 years. And for first year, I was liking it. And second year, I ended up like getting burnout. And I thought like, no, this is not the thing which I want to do.
Why? Why did you not like it after a while?
So I'll be frank, because I loved writing code. I mean, there was like after a year, I realized that, sometimes you just you're sitting and then you're talking to yourself and thinking, hey, what I want to do in my life. That was one of those instances where I was just thinking about it, and I was like, why I became an engineer? I became an engineer because I love writing code. I was like really excited when I see things which I made and being used by others. But this management stuff is like, no, this is probably I won't be able to do it for me. And then that was it. Like I said, okay, I don't want to do this. And then I ended up talking to my manager, my CEOs, and they were like, they had no interest in like moving me away from that stuff, because I was doing it exceptionally well. I think I made a great team, like someone like a team which was actually struggling to the one. They were the one of my team was one of the best performing teams. So they saw this and they don't want to like just let it go. And then I saw like I have to move. I think they will not let me move, so I have to move. I left my job and then ended up doing IC again. And same stuff, Celonis ended up having this discussion, and then my manager said, "Hey, you don't have to become a manager, because at Celonis we have this staff engineer role where you can be still an IC and you can still help the organization in the technology aspect and whatever you're doing." Actually, I was interested in giving conference talks, right? So this is like one of the impact which you can make to the organization, that you are going out and promoting about Celonis as well, right? Whenever you say hey, I work at Celonis, people come back and ask me what I
Yeah.
do, because I'm not a DevRel. Most of the conferences you go and that you will find people, hey, I'm DevRel at this company, DevRel at that company, but I was not DevRel officially. So it was just so I ended up like talking to my manager and says like, can we do this? Can we include this community stuff which I'm doing, actually conference stuff I'm doing as part of my goals? Like whenever you set up your goals with your manager. So I ended up saying, can we include this, like 20% of my goal is actually to talk about Celonis or promote Celonis? And he said, yes, we can do that. And that's then he informed about roles, like what you can become, staff engineer, then you can get promoted to senior staff, and then you have, of course, there are roles above that, like you can become a principal engineer and then distinguished engineer. And I was like really happy that, oh, there's some company at least where there's a path for ICs like me who are interested not in doing management. Of course, you cannot leave management totally. You still have to interact with people. I think I'm a good people person. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I love to talk to people, and that's what I've been doing at Celonis as well. Like I speak to multiple teams and see like what the problem is, and we try to resolve that issue. So that's how it started. That was the initial discussion which we had.
Incredible. First of all, congratulations again. I think I want to dive into the fact that you've had a career for 16 years, and this is this is only the second time that this has happened over 16 years. Whereas you the more common thing to happen is instead of getting promoted, you just leave. And the first time it wasn't even promoted. It was so it is my belief, the belief of this podcast, and this is what I teach the listeners as well, is that management and IC. Management is not a step up from IC or individual contributor. It's a side step. It's a different track. And oftentimes, honestly, management and being a senior engineer are the same sort of level if the organization is structured correctly. So we have another episode with Jeff Escalante, who is the director of engineering at Clerk, one of the greatest engineering leaders in the industry. And he says that this is his position. Like, management is a side step. It's not an up step. Unfortunately, this isn't your experience, and it's not the experience of many. And so the first time it wasn't even really a promotion. So this is the only time we can say in your 16-year career that you've been promoted, whereas the pattern before this is just to leave. And so I want to dive into that because I think this is very common. I've never worked a job, Santosh, ever in my career for more than 2 years. Never, ever, ever. Not once. And I've been building on the web for over 25 years at places like Vercel, Spotify, Zeta. And still, 2 years maximum. I just completed 1 year at DataStax, which was acquired or intends to be acquired by IBM. So even now, it's going to be 1 year or 1.5 years at DataStax, and then it's going to become a new job at IBM. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
2 years impossible. I'm curious, since this is the case, how did that happen? What should listeners get? Should they get sort of motivation to stay the course, stay more than 2 years? Because you also mentioned you were thinking about leaving until I believe it was your manager who said, no, hey, you can do this other thing.
Yeah, of course. That's a very good question, right? I think this is a mindset of engineers who really get bored doing similar stuff at the same place. That was me. I mean, I'm talking about. I'm talking about from my experience, but that's what I've seen. Initial 3 years in my career, I never worked any organization for more than a year.
Wow.
Believe me. So the first company where I've ended up working for more than a year was the startup where I worked for close to 5 years. And that was like after 3 years. So I remember like my HR, when she was giving me offer, she asked me like, you have never worked for a company in last 3 years for more than a year. How long you will work here? And then I said, give me work and I'll stay for a year for sure. And she ended up like laugh. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, give me work, and I'll make sure that I stay for a year. And then if you still continue giving me work, I'll probably look for the future. But if there is no work, I'll leave. And she
Which
was
sounds reasonable, yeah? Like, who
yeah,
wants to stay at a company if there's nothing for you to do?
yeah. And I have spoken to, like, I have worked with so many engineers, like from different companies as well. And this is a common pattern between a good engineer and probably an engineer who is like really comfortable with what they're doing. Like they don't have to worry about like what's happening, what's going to happen next year, or they don't care about like what's going to happen in their career. They see, oh, it's very chill job. I mean, I'm not getting worried by my managers. I can come at whatever time, I can leave at whatever time, and they get into comfort zone, right? And this is where we are different, probably. That's why we never worked for more than 2 years. Believe me, I mean, when I moved to Germany, my goal was to work for the first company where I was for 2 years, because I thought, oh, who will like work after 2 years, right? What will be there to solve?
Yeah.
Like, and same with Celonis as well. I was like, okay, let's give 2 years and see like what I'm going to do after 2 years. And I mean, I'll complete like in 3 months. That will be my third year.
Wow.
3 years, 3 years. That's Solonis. So I think everything is same. It's just the mindset of developers, whether they really want to grow in their career, or they just are happy, or like they are into comfort zone. If you leave that comfort zone, you will always look out for what's going to happen in my career rather than what's happening in the organization, right? And that's the difference, I think.
Can you remind us what Solonis does?
Yeah, so Celonis is actually a German-based startup. So I think it's one of the unicorn from Germany. We are into process mining, or you can say we started as a process mining company basically in 2011, and it was a college project which ended up being one of the biggest unicorn in Germany. And now we do process optimization. So let's say if any company who has processes, so Celonis can actually take your data and then optimize your processes, saying, hey, this is the bottleneck in your processes. Sometimes companies don't realize that whenever they create a new process, for example, procurement, they say, hey, we have 4 steps. These are 4 steps, and then our procurement is completed. But there are hidden steps which they are not aware. No one is aware, but they're doing it, and it's wasting money, it's wasting time. And this is where Celonis really comes into picture and tells them, hey, you're saying 4 processes, you have 40 processes actually to complete procurement. And this is where you can actually remove bottlenecks. There are many companies who do early payments, like really early payments to the vendors, not thinking about it. There are companies who make payments without even worried about what vendors are doing. You know the scams, right? There are just vendors who will send you the invoice and say, hey, this is how much you need to pay. And then there are companies which pays. For example, I think Google was one of them, right? They were paying a
Yeah.
vendor, and then
Yeah, also the US government probably.
So those are the things that you can actually capture early. You can figure out like if that's really a vendor or not. And there are companies who work with us as a close with a close relation, right? So we also, let's say, once we onboard one processes, we go ahead and ask them like, can we just work on the other processes? Maybe if you see the value here, there are more processes which can be optimized. And then we try to like really make a good connection and dig into the processes and see where we can save money.
Is this product based or is it consulting based?
It's a product based, but we create actually one good thing about Celonis creates jobs as well. So because there are so many companies who need Celonis consultants who knows our system. So there are Celonis consultants as well who can like get a job in a company where Celonis is being used.
That's awesome. Cool. Thank you for that. I didn't. So, and this applies to like any vertical. Like you use the example of procurement, but it could even be like a tech company like Netflix. Hey, our hiring process is super broken. Everyone's spending too much time. Like, come help.
Exactly. Yeah. It can be applied to anything. I mean, it can be, there was a use case last year I mean, so, dating, like online dating, you can actually apply this to online dating as well to see like what you're doing, how many dates you have been to, how many money you invested. Like you can just dump your own data and see that. That was nice, actually.
There's probably many, many, many listeners on this podcast who are thinking of doing that. It's a lot of people who are who are thirsty. I don't know how else to say it. Cool. Okay. Wow. So now you're a staff engineer at Solonis. That's how you got promoted. You mentioned you wrote this. By the way, we'll put a link to this in the show notes. You wrote a blog post, "My Journey to Staff Engineer," which I appreciate that you do that because there's people who are exactly where you were, who want to either quit or become a staff engineer. And when you create content like this, it helps them. So we'll definitely surface that. You mentioned in this post you wrote, this colleague named Ron. I love that you name people because this kind of thing is worthy of praise. But you said he planted the seed about the idea of becoming a staff engineer. Can we talk about that? Would you have gone down the path without that? Was it a valuable seed? And if yes, then how can we be Rons in our environment?
So when I joined Celonis, I was like at really low in my life, right? I mean, I was not thinking about promotion. I was thinking about surviving. I was like, let's have this job because I'm new to Germany and things are not going well. And let's
Right,
survive
but
here.
just for context, this was not your first job in Germany. You had this
No.
previous job in Germany, which led you
Yeah,
to a
exactly.
burnout. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just surviving and I was like doing my work. I was enjoying it because I was able to travel to conferences and everywhere. And I remember in March 2023, like it was 6 months after my joining, right? I went to Munich. So I was recording a podcast. I was recording a podcast in my company. And while I was leaving, so Ron, he's now actually we work in the same team now. So he joined our team a few months back. And he was like leaving the office. I never met him. We just like had chat on Slack and now we are good friends. And he came in and he saw me, hey Santosh. And I was wondering, who's this guy? And then he introduced me, Ron. I was like, oh, I know you from the Slack. And then he was talking to his teammate. He said, hey, meet Santosh. He is one of our staff engineer. And I was like, staff engineer? I was like, no, I'm senior engineer. And then he said, oh, he was surprised. Like he acted surprised. I was like, and then I thought like, and then I just had conversation. I left, and then I started wondering why he called me staff engineer. Probably, maybe I'm doing something, which probably is the role of a staff engineer, and that might be the reason. And then I went home. Like, of course, I was there with my family, and then stopped wondering about it. Went home, but that actually thing kicked in, and then I started talking to my managers that I want to get promoted. I want to move to IC role. So I think if he never mentioned, probably I would have been in the same mindset that whatever I'm doing my work, I'm surviving. That's what I wanted to do, and probably never would have applied for promotion.
Crazy. I have a relatable experience to this where it's not positive the way yours was positive, but I joined Spotify when I did and was offered a staff engineer. So the offer was for a staff engineer position, but this was changed just before I joined to senior, which is one level under staff. And I was like, that's weird. And I spoke to my manager and so on, and he said, it's fine. When a position becomes available for staff, we'll just 6 months we'll put you in there, and then. So I joined a team with a staff engineer. I was the senior engineer on the team. And then the staff engineer quit. And I thought, great, this is my chance. But then they started hiring externally for staff engineer for this team. And I had been there. And this obviously was like not comfortable for me. So I spoke to my manager and I was like, hey, why I was offered that position in the beginning, why not just do it internally? We'll also save a bunch of time. Our process would be more efficient, to speak Solonis, if we don't look externally, but if we just promote me. But my manager said, and this sticks with me it's been 4 years since then, and it's still I hear this regularly. He said, well, if you want to become a staff engineer, usually how it works is, you act like one, and you are already acting like one for long enough that people just think you're a staff engineer. So then when you become a staff engineer, nobody's surprised. They're like, yeah, of course, he's been doing the staff engineer job this whole time. And so you fit the role when you get the promotion. It's not like you're a senior engineer today, you're not doing any staff engineer type stuff, but now you're a staff engineer, And for me, I was like, oh, that interesting. And he was right. I was operating as a senior engineer because that was my title. I didn't feel the need to go above because I also have a strong respect for humility in the sense of your place and you stay in your lane, so to speak. But I found out that day it's actually encouraged to not stay in your lane, but to always overreach if you want to. So with all of that experience, I'm curious. I wonder what Ron saw that he ascribed to being a staff engineer? Did you ever ask him about this? Like, what would someone see to think, oh, this is a staff? How do you act like a staff engineer if you're a senior engineer?
Really, really valid question and a good question, because a lot of people do think like, okay, what's this staff engineer does, right? Or of how to get promoted to staff. So one thing which I figured out, like my role was actually working with multiple teams. And my team actually together were solving the issues which is common for all. Like we are not only touching our area, but we are actually going out and talking about like what are the common pain points for everyone. And we were actually solving those issues. My team is actually not responsible for shipping features. My team is actually responsible for making sure that the features are delivered on time. So, and that happens when you you increase the productivity of developers, right? So we started working on fix those common issues, which is stopping developers from going to production or merging their peers faster. And that's what we were doing. Like we were totally focused on. As soon as I started, I was looking at my code base. We started figuring out what can be improved because we were using NX. It was like 6 months when I joined. We were adopting this tool. I ended up actually talking to multiple teams and convinced them to move their code base to the monorepo, which is not a senior engineer's role. It's actually something between like staff and principal engineer, where you're convincing other teams to work with us, right? And ended up convincing most of them. We started migration. We migrated code base. Then we found like there are other issues. For example, now we have 10 different code bases together. Now we have linting issues. Now there are no common linters. Then we started working on those, like having a common pattern or having a common linters for everyone. Having documentation, like we started like improving our documentation, started building more tools for those developers, and coming up with more suggestions, right? So I remember like when I joined, and 6 months we were thinking like what we need to do now, and we came up with work for next 2 years. I was like, oh my god, like
Wow.
this is 2 years worth of work. And remember my first, I think that was not appraisal, but yeah, kind of having discussion with my manager, and he said, Santosh, and he was leaving. So I joined, then my manager changed because he moved to IC role, and a new manager came, and he left within 6 months. And he said, Santosh, you don't have to look out for a job for at least 2 years. I mean, you can work here for 5 years, because the kind of impact you have is like really nice. It's visible. Like your work is actually visible for everyone, because you are getting to work on the core thing, right? You're helping developers, you're communicating with them. And as I said, like I'm a people person. I love to talk. I love to, if there's one thing which I keep in mind, if you're not enjoying working with me, then I'm doing something wrong. So if we ever, like, even if we did a one PR together and you never came back and spoke to me, hey dude, how are you doing or something, then I think I am doing something wrong. And basically I gave you some wrong impression or something. So I try to be nice to people. And so everyone like knew this guy is very nice, so they are unapproachable. So I used to approach them like if they are having any trouble or something, and that helped. That actually was visible to everyone that this guy is actually going ahead, talking to everyone, trying to solve their issues or common pain points. So those are the things, but I was not aware that I'm doing staff role, and this is where the book comes into picture. I mentioned like a book called Staff Engineer's Path. Amazing book. Like I remember like I ended up reading it last year. Oh, sorry, last year around early 2024, right? Because that's where I really wanted to go for promotion 2024. But yeah, ended up not doing. We'll talk about it. But yeah, I read that book and I was like, oh, I do most of the things from here, and that gave me validation, because most of the time in our life, this is what I've seen, that we need validation from someone that you're doing this. Like, for example, like in community, so, when I became a Google developer expert, I was like wondering why. But when you hear from others saying, hey, you did a nice job and then probably deserve it, that's validation, right? Even though most of the time we don't need it, hearing those words makes it feel like you deserved it, or you were doing something right at least. And that's where that book really helped me. Like I read that book and I ended up saying, I think I totally deserve this promotion. This is things which I have been doing. It's there in the book. and I'm doing something right.
Awesome. The Staff Engineer's Path. What a great book. We'll put links to that in the show notes if people want it, especially given your recommendation. I love that you said you had like an objective measure. It's like, hey, look, the book says it. This is what I'm doing. I want to talk about what you just said about validation. I think we need validation way more often than sometimes. And so I have a habit of maybe over validating people. I will often, even on this podcast, people laugh when I say like, hey, you're a fantastic guest. Thank you for coming. I grew up with my life-threatening illness, and I actually thought I was going to die every 2 weeks or so. And so for me, I developed this like need to validate people a lot because like, hey, I may be dead like in 2 weeks. And so I often tell people, I'm like, you're awesome. Thank you. You're fantastic. You're the best. I so appreciate you because, I was probably going to die. Now, I'm not going to die anytime soon, probably. But that thing is still there, this validation thing. And what I've learned is I also find it weird when people don't do that. And I combine this with horror stories I hear from the industry and from professional circles, where a lot of people say things like this. And I'm about to quote actual things that people have said to me. One, they say, the prize for winning the cake eating contest is more cake. Meaning, if you do really good work, they're just going to give you more work. So don't do a lot of work. Otherwise, you're going to get overwhelmed. That's one thing people say. People also say management, meaning the people above you, are usually full of tactics, and they will almost never validate you because then you feel like you're not good enough and you work harder, and that's what they want. There's this narrative around like exploitation and really workplace abuse, as opposed to what you're saying, which is a manager saying, hey, that's great work. Thank you. That's so useful. I'm curious, like, can we reconcile this? Because you seem to have this at Solonis where there's a leadership team that is validating you. But from the things I hear from people, this is rare and special and maybe uncommon. For those in other environments, what's the solution, or what are steps we can take to maybe get this validation if it's not being freely given?
This is a very valid question in the industry today because I've been there. One thing which really was nice about my career so far, I always had nice managers, and I've seen most managers actually expect only one thing from like complete your work and come up with the ideas, right? No managers actually just likes to sit there and say, okay, you do this and then you do that and this loop is completed, right? If you like take an extra step saying, okay, we did this, but I think we can improve this, and that. Then some managers, I'm not talking about all, because I've seen those managers as well, where they suggest something and then probably they will end up presenting it as their own idea, or they will just stop saying, okay, we don't need this. But I was lucky. I was always encouraged by managers in my past. I have experience with one of those managers as well, where things didn't work out, and I ended up leaving. So I think rather than suffering in those environments where your manager is toxic, the best option is leave, because you see that, right? I mean, if you don't leave, they will make your life more miserable. So I don't think so there is any way to figure that out or move away from that.
So the solution is leave. Also probably because there are multiple options if you're reasonably skilled.
If you're good, if you're a good engineer, I don't think so you have to struggle. Let's not talk about today's market because everyone is struggling. I really feel sad to see that like there are good engineers who lost their jobs either because of restructuring, reorganization, or maybe this organization decided to take another path. They're not bad engineers, right? Yeah, and probably Tejas, you might have worked with some amazing engineers in your life career, and you see them struggling as well. So not today's market, but yeah, generally there is always a need for good engineers in our industry. And if you're one of them, I will say don't struggle with that toxic managers and that toxic organization.
That's a good thing to hear, because I think also some people fall into the trap of believing, oh, but if I just do it just right, I can help them change. I can manage up I can maybe if I can influence, I can, and then they end up, what they don't realize is they end up working like twice as hard. I mean, you have enough work to do at your job, but now you're trying to manage your manager, and at some point you get frustrated, you get burnt out probably, and it may not be worth it in the end, right?
Exactly. There is, I think, this is where uh, nothing is above your health. Right? There's nothing. I mean, you can make a lot of money, but if you don't focus on your health, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, totally. Speaking about health, you mentioned that, I mean, Santosh, you do a lot of things. I mean, you maintain this great blog. You're a Google developer expert for Angular, GitHub star, NX champion, Microsoft MVP. Like every program, Santosh Yadav is something. And you're staff engineer at Celonis. You dropped speaking at conferences for a while last year. I was there with your last talk of the year, last year at React India. But how do you balance this, man? How do you balance this and then stay like healthy?
This is where you have to choose sometime in your life something else, right, which is more priority. And things happened last year. So of course, for 2 years, when I joined Solonis, I got this freedom, right, to actually go ahead and speak at conferences, manage my work, and I was doing it. But I lost something. I lost my health, right? 2 years ago, or a year ago, in 2024, I came across that I have a diabetes type 2. It's a good thing is not type 1. And I really admire people who have diabetes type 1 and then they are still managing it. I know Scott Hanselman is one. He's like amazing person, but he also has type 1 diabetes, which is hard to manage. So when I came across, first thing was it was hard to process. I mean, because when I heard about it, I have diabetes type 2, and then my blood sugar was too high. It was like around 270, which is not even type 2, it is type 1 actually. And then all the things from the past, they started playing, all the memories, that how I used to sleep after every meal. I remember my birthday, I mean 2023, we had at a home, and then we had dinner, and then I literally passed out uh, after eating dinner, right? And then all this started playing in my mind. So this was actually the impact diabetes was having in my life. I was sleeping most of the time. And then I realized, okay, I have to drop something. I cannot do everything. And that's where dropping out from conferences was one of the decisions. I said, I cannot drop my career. Right? I mean, that's important.
You have a child.
Yeah, I have a child. Exactly. So compromising there was not a chance, but good thing, of course, when you have nice managers. I remember it was April of 2024, right? When I got the news. March, I was on vacation because my daughter's holiday. We were across Germany, so we went to for a road trip. Basically, we went to Hanover and went to Berlin. I think as I messaged you, and then you said, yeah, you're. I think you were busy. You're doing
I was
something
in
else,
Paris or something.
Yeah, so we couldn't meet, but I was in Berlin, and then back home, got this news that I have diabetes, and then processed this news. I said what to do, so I decided to take a vacation. I spoke to my manager and said, hey, this has happened, and my manager was like, totally take your time, and this is the support you need, from your management or your manager, if not even management. And he said, take your time. I mean, go back or go to vacation. I was scared because look, I have worked most of my life in India, and in India, when you ask for a vacation, probably people will be like, "Oh, you just came." They will start talking about that. "Oh, you just came from vacation." And my manager was like, "No, take your time. I think this is." He said, "Yeah, he's really sorry to hear about it." But then I went to vacation, came back, and decided to do what I want to do next. And then I said, "Okay, I have to drop some things, focus more on my health." And um, this so one thing which I had discussion with some of the stars as well, GitHub stars, because many of them do open source, and I was like, well, how do you do that? And they said they say no. They say no to most of the things, because if you end up saying yes to something, you are saying no to something which is more important. And then that clicked, that after hearing this, from your colleagues from the industry, right? They are also doing same stuff as probably me. And then I thought, okay, I love going to conferences, but it takes most of my time traveling, staying at hotels, eating food which is probably not healthy. and let's reduce this, right? Maybe I'll end up doing it again, but not at this frequency which I was doing, right? I mean, I was almost traveling every month, and then this is also make the this also makes sense, right? I mean, because more healthier you are, longer you will be able to survive, and probably you'll be able to enjoy things. So yeah, that thing really kicked, and then I started running. So I'm into running now.
I do want to touch on all that. In fact, I'm working on a podcast episode which may ship after we ship yours, about how to just be healthy as a developer.
Nice.
I've been very fortunate to know quite a few sports and exercise scientists who are really experts at health science, and reconcile that with my illness, but also my fitness, which I'm super grateful to just be as fit as I am. I'm probably as fit as ever. And I mean, I recently posted something on X where I had like 6-pack abs and whatever. But it's more than the aesthetic. It's like, do you feel great? Do you feel strong? Do you feel capable? Indeed, I feel all those things, and I'm setting new personal records like quite regularly. And so I think a lot of developers, unfortunately, are trapped on a chair and want that but don't know how. So we'll maybe do an episode of that. And I do want to circle back there, but I'd love to zero in on two things before we do that on the career side, which is, you said you've always had nice managers, and part of me is wondering, is that because you're a nice person? You know what I mean? Like, you say, I like people, I like talking to people. If you don't want to meet with me, then I'm doing something wrong. That's what you said. And I'm wondering if nice just leads to nice, because I know a lot of people who are, frankly, they're not very nice people, and then they keep complaining, oh, my managers are this and my managers are that. And I'm wondering if maybe the recipe to have nice managers is to be a decent, understanding person yourself. I don't know. The idea just came to me as you were talking. I'm curious if you have some thoughts on that. Is it just a reflection of your own niceness, or is there more to it?
Maybe you're right, because it has effect, right? People actually judge you from how you treat them, right? And if your first impression is not good, probably you will not have a nice rapport with particular guy. I remember, like, when I was working for a bank, and I was like having this yearly review with my manager, and my manager said, like, I really admire one thing from you, is your calmness. Like, whenever there is something wrong, you're like always calm and composed. I was like, what I will achieve by shouting? Nothing, right? And then I was also happy that, because I remember, like, I was not that this the kind of guy I am today. When I was working at with the startup, like where I worked for close to 5 years, I was like really short tempered. I used to actually fight with people a lot. I had good friends, but of course, I had this side of
Wow.
myself where I was fighting with people. I think one thing which I never took, like, I should have taken it very harsh on myself when this happened. There was an engineer, a QA engineer, who joined our organization, and he left within a week, and that was because of me. And because
Wow.
there was a meeting which was going on, and then his team lead, like the QA manager, and we had some argument, and then I ended up shutting him out. And that guy, like, got really scared, and he left the organization. And then I was speaking to this because he was my friend, like the QA lead. And I was asking, like, where is this guy? I don't see him anymore. And he said, dude, he left because of you. And I thought, like, he's joking. So I was like, just in the way, right? I said, kya mazak kar raha hai?" And then just to like translate this in English, I thought, like, he's joking. But he said no, he really left because you remember our conversation which we had in the meeting room. I was like, what? He said, yeah. And then once I left that startup, because things were getting toxic, I think, sometimes you just become part of it, and you never know that you are now a part of this all toxic things which is happening across the organization. And I probably became one. And then when I started realizing, oh, this is not the thing, like this, I shouldn't be doing that. And then I changed myself. I tried to be more calm, see, observe. Which one thing which has helped me a lot is listening to people. Let them speak. If they want to shout at you, they want to even say bad things about you, let them do that. And then process it and then reply whenever you have time. And I think one good thing, again, I learned it from one of my manager. I will talk about an incident which happened, which actually changed my perspective a little bit. So it's like around 2014, and I had a new manager, very nice guy. I think he was one of the person who inspired me to become a manager, people manager. So I was leading on a project which was like very really critical, and we ended up delivering that project within or even less than what the time which was given to us. Like we worked really our asses off for night in the office, like. And even at the end, like things didn't go well. We decided to use some database, which was, I think, Mongo at that time. It was really new, and that server ended up crashing. And then we had to rewrite our code, not everything, because we architected really well. So we just had to replace our database layer. So we just had to replace it with SQL, back from Mongo to SQL. But we ended up doing that in the night. We went home. Me and my engineer, she was also tired, like dead tired. Like we have been working for 2-3 days now. We went home, and one of our architect. So we gave him information, right? What's happening, what we did so far. And as soon as we reached home, I was sleeping, and we started getting calls. Things are not working. I was like, what's not working? Because before I left, I checked all the API endpoints. Everything was working, and he was not giving me answers like what's wrong, what's wrong. And then he's messaging me as well as my engineer. She is also sleeping. And around 10 in the night, 10 p.m. in the night, we said, let's go to the office. And we both, like, I took a cab, picked her up, went to the office, and everything was working fine. Believe me, everything was like, I was like, what the hell? And then I got angry. That was that was how I was. Like, I used to get angry all the time. And then I ended up like calling my manager. I actually, I didn't like, I was like totally lost my mind because I've been working from 3 days, and now this happens. And I ended up shouting at him that from next time onwards, don't give my work to anyone. And then and like I disconnected call like on my manager. And after I disconnected my call, I thought like probably this will be my last day. Because I'm sure any other manager will not take this lightly. And then next day morning, I mean, we decided to sleep in the office because it was already late. So we said like let's sleep. And in
Wait,
morning,
and you don't think that's like toxic? You don't think that's a toxic work environment that has you sleeping in the office?
it was like I said this right currently, because sometimes you don't think about it, but you become part of it. And I was part of it.
Right.
So we ended up sleeping in the office, and then sharp, I think it was morning 7 a.m. My manager came to the office with breakfast for all of us. And I was expecting him to be angry at me. And the first thing which like I was avoiding, even I was avoiding eye contact with him, believe me, because I thought like, oh, I'm gone. Now I'm gone. And then he came to me, put a hand on my shoulder because I was trying to avoid him. Says, Santosh, how are you? All good? I was like, oh, I just shouted at this guy in the night. And he's he's not even manager, he's like a VP, vice president of the company, right? And then I was like, I would say, I mean, I had a lot of ego because I always believed I'm a good engineer, right? And that kind of ego I always had, like when I was starting my career. And then I think that day, most of my ego died. I was like, wow, this guy is VP. I shouted at him. He comes with breakfast and asks me how I am doing. He's not asking about like anything else. He's just worried about like how I am doing right now. And I think that changed this perspective of like how I treat people. And then I ended up, of course, thinking a lot about like what things I've done. And then I started changing myself. Whenever I go to a new workplace, first thing which I look at is I should be nice like with everyone. People generally, this is what I've seen. People are not bad. It's sometimes it's the setup around them, right? I mean, probably they're part of a team which is not nice to him, not getting good enough support. People struggle for different reasons, right? You never know. I mean, you just need to talk to them to understand what's going on. And once you do that, you really connect at this emotional level, I would say, at a personal level, which is beyond work. So people would like to, even they leave, they would love to have connection with you. Otherwise, in probably in 16 years or in 25 years, we have worked with thousands of people. We are not in touch with everyone. But we know this nice people, right? And probably they are still part of our connection and we probably talk to them daily.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can name them since you named my friend Sai Baba Sachitanand, my friend Fabien Bernard, my friend Misha Potiman, former guest on the podcast Attila Fasina. These guys, like I've
Oh,
worked with them and I know them well. They all live in the same city. Sai lives like I can walk to his place in like 15, 20 minutes. And I worked with Sai like 8 years ago at his first job in Germany. I was that guy. I was his manager. I was his tech lead. Same with Fabian. Same with Attila. I was all their tech leads. And I now that you mentioned the value of this like bringing breakfast thing, I never had anyone on my team work to that extent where they're sleeping in the office, but I was always trying to be this person. And the awesome thing is, it works. Like you said, like we don't work together anymore, but Fabian and I have worked together at 3 different companies, and we just keep moving together because we have that thing that extends beyond work. In fact, he's I don't know if he's okay with me sharing this, but I'll do it anyway. Next month he has like his wedding, and he says it's extremely important for me to be there.
yeah.
We're like at this level because of that, because of the human side, and so I think that's so very valuable. I also am surprised to find that you were not always this calm, but it makes sense. One more thing you said, Santosh, that is so profound, and I need everybody listening to like zoom in here with their attention and pay attention, is the idea that people are not just bad because they're bad, but like you said, there's something around them that isn't peaceful. One of my best friends, I wouldn't go that far. One of my friends, Dave Schnitter, he says, instead of asking questions like, why are you like this? Why are you so bad? Instead of asking, why are you? He says, if you switch this to asking what happened, he's like, you automatically care about them. This question immediately puts you in a position where you care about them. What happened to you? And also, what happened to me that I somehow minded this. And he's like, these what happened questions can be so much more helpful when it comes to like actually building compassion for someone, which is what your VP had with you, compassion. And that, like you said, changes everything. So I think that's super valuable. I hope everyone listening to this, if there's one thing they take away, is just ask what happened. What happened? Have you not slept? Have you? Which in your case you didn't sleep. Yeah. Have you? Are you working too much, etc. You said within the last 5 years you've been working from home, and in working from home you achieved so much more working from home than what you could working from office, which I think is very interesting because I sometimes go to the office, the DataStax office in California. It's awesome. It's the best office I've ever been to, mainly because we have a lot of great snacks. But also, man, like Santosh, you walk in and like it's all glass, and you see like the mountains of Silicon Valley. It's amazing. And I love working in this office because everything is taken care of. There's a gym, so you can go exercise. There's food provided; it's cooked. You just eat it, and everything sort of like goes out of the way, so you can focus on work. It's amazing, and I know it's like that for a reason because they want you to work. But like, wow, and so I enjoy. I feel like I do more work per unit time when I'm there in the office. Whereas when I'm home, I'm at home, so I can get up and go to my coffee machine. I can go to the gym. I can do all these things, and I feel like the volume of work for sure is less when I'm at home, but the quality of that work is more. Does that make sense? The quantity is less, but the quality is more because I do more work per unit time when I'm home, but it's just there's not a lot of unit time, so to speak. And so I'm curious if you could maybe elaborate on this. How do you achieve more working from home than you could working from office? Is it similar to me where it's just more focus and less distraction, or I'm curious?
I think keeping boundaries, because most of my career I was in India. And to tell you, I don't have to talk about the time you spend in traffic, right? So when I was in
Yes.
India, mostly I was traveling in traffic, stuck in traffic. I think when I moved to Pune, it actually moved a little bit. Like rather than 4 hours, I'm traveling 2 hours now, but I was still struggling. Like traveling 2 hours, and traveling makes you tired. So once you are back home, the only thing which you want to do is sleep, eat and sleep. You miss a lot of family times, and of course you don't have anything else to think about once you're back. And I think once I like started working remotely, that gave me enough time to actually bond with family. Like I remember, like one 2020, right? So the year I started working from home, and I was like, oh, probably God is paying back the time which I missed with my daughter, because I missed a lot of time. I mean, during my startup days, as I said, like I used to be in office for 4 days, sometime just sleeping in the office. So I think those times, I think I was able to recover. But I also early when I started working from home, I decided to put these boundaries that okay, this is my work time. If I'm like blocking my time for something else, I'm letting or then in case I will of course increase my time by a few hours. But I make sure like I start my office 9:30 or 9:30 or 9, whenever, or early as morning as early as possible at 8 sometime, and then end it by 6. Sometime it happens that I may need to like be available online just in case, but not every time, right? So setting up these boundaries that this is my work time, this is not, I'm not doing anything else, helps a lot. That okay, and then also like you also plan for next day, like, or a week. Generally, this is what I do. I generally plan for a week. This is that what I'm going to do this week. So we already have tasks, right? So this is also, I think, part of being in a very good team where we discuss about like what are the things which we want to work on and set up our goals like for quarter. So we set up quarterly goals, like, oh, these are the things which we have to do. And then we decide like what are the things which I'm going to do. And then I generally plan for a week that, okay, this is for this week or this month, probably probably work on these issues. So, and apart from that, of course, we also get like a lot of issues from developers that they are facing some issues. So we have to help them, but we also know like what we have to do for this week or this month. And it helps me like being focused, like what I want to do.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that's also how I tend to approach things. What am I going to ship by Friday? And then I let Monday influence that. Awesome. I didn't at all think about the factor of commute time. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you probably save a lot of time working from home just there. I want to move slowly towards the health topics because congratulations, you just ran your first half marathon. But on the way there, I want to touch on a few more topics around the work stuff, and then we'll get to the health stuff. You run a show that I was on. Thank you. It was fun being on your show. This is Tech Talks. And you have some recent episodes on like LLMs, home automation, AI. One, why? I mean, what's? I mean, AI is interesting and cool. Is that why? And if so, that's fair. But also, you do stuff like you have a Substack newsletter that I have the pleasure of reading, and you have This Is Learning, which is your sort of educational initiative. I'm curious, what does it take to run all that, and what is the main sort of outcome you're hoping to achieve? That I think I can kind of guess, but I want to hear it straight from you.
I think the idea of behind having this is Tech Talks as a publication was actually promoting the free knowledge, right, or free resources to the community. So that was the idea which came from Lars. He was the
kind of like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then, of course, when we started this publication, people started joining, and then I joined. This is Tech Talks. Sorry, This Is Learning publication as a co-founder, and then I said like, let's do the podcast thing because I was doing podcast as on my own, and then I got burned out. Like, I did for a year, and then I got burned out. I was like, okay, I won't be able to do it alone, and let's do it with community, right? That's how I decided to actually. The idea was simple that let's invite the developers who are really good in what they do, and I will also learn because that's important, right? You cannot know everything. I mean, that's bullshit if someone tells you that they know everything, but it's not possible. So
Not even
hearing
ChatGPT knows everything.
exactly. So hearing from people like what they have been doing or what's going on in the industry, for example, AI and LLM stuff, these are like, of course, very has become a very like integral part of day-to-day work. A lot of developers can say that they are not using AI or maybe GitHub Copilot, but they are somehow using AI in other ways, possibly like ChatGPT, or maybe they're using some other LLMs in their work, or maybe some IDs they are not aware of. So, of course, so this year we wanted to have this podcast where we talk about more AI, LLM, home automation. Actually, was something which I wanted to do last year with one of the team leads, but we ended up doing this year. And the idea is simple: learn and share what people know, and also giving people platform, right? Because sometimes there are people who with knowledge, but they don't have a platform to share that knowledge. So sometime I try to actually reach out to those developers saying, hey, we have been doing something great. Let's come to our podcast and let's talk about it. So that was also one idea which I keep in mind whenever I'm like getting a new guest.
Fantastic. You mentioned home automation. You wanted to do it next year, but you're doing it this year. I'm curious about that because it's one of those things, Santosh, that I've always wanted to do, but I keep putting off because the manual approach is not that difficult. I have a window here with curtains, and if I want to close the curtains, I use my arms, man. I just go in. But I could create some type of like Siri or Alexa skill of like I say the words and then they just close, or Kent, yeah, Kent Dodds yesterday was super excited because his office now, like if he walks in, all the lights just come on, and if he, it's cool in theory, but for me, I'm like that's just like why, and so that combined with you can use things like MCP now, Model Context Protocol, to give ChatGPT or similar tools access to your home automation equipment, right? And so you can just send like ChatGPT or whatever. It's kind of bright in here, and I want to dim the lights, and it'll just do it for you. I'm curious, to what extent is your home automated? And I guess, what am I missing to get to that level besides motivation? You know what I mean? Like, there's some type of block in my mind where I'm like, but why? And I think maybe if I start to explore this myself, I'm ultimately just scared. Like I could buy curtain railings and then install them, but I'm not handy at all, and maybe I'm just scared of the setup. But I'm curious. I will let you speak. Let's maybe start by talking about what is the extent to which your home is automated, and what are you working on for the future?
So to be frank, we were like not at home for a month. So I was using Home Assistant, which is an open source tool,
Okay.
or they have a package which you can install and run it locally. The first thing which don't want to do it, of course, I don't want you to give access to my home to Alexa or something else, right? So I ended
Yeah.
up choosing Home Assistant, which is like really your private network. So you have only access to everything. Now you can install it locally or you can install it on cloud, whatever you decide. But I was really inspired by looking at my friend's setup because he did that first. So he used to always talk about Home Assistant, and then he installed it. He actually automated everything. He has like amazing setup where like, he knows like which lights are on. He also has like this triggers. Oh, after 6 p.m., the garden lights will be on, right? Or after maybe morning 6 a.m., they will close automatically or they will be shut down automatically. And if there are any windows open, he will get an alert because he lives in a house, right? He owns an house. So everything like from gate to his entire house is actually mapped on Home Assistant. So he knows like he can just look at his Home Assistant and see like which lights is on right now in which room, and he can control it. And then last year at GitHub Universe, I got the chance to meet the developers, the team behind it, because Home Assistant is actually one of the most widely contributed project actually. So most number of people like contribute to Home Assistant than any other project on GitHub. And I was like, wow, so this is what my friend was talking about. And then I came home, installed it, and I was able to control few things automatically because with other technologies or the things, you have to actually manually configure it. With Home Assistant, what I liked was they had this integration with every other device, right? So if they find out TV in your room, they will automatically connect it on your app, on Home Assistant.
Wow.
So sometimes it's just, this is the time to onboard is what we are scared of. We are not scared of like using it, but time to onboard my devices is what is like probably I don't want to do that. And Home Assistant is like really nice. You can just start it and it will automatically detect, hey, you have probably Alligator light, and it will connect it. You have another device, maybe bought it from some Chinese company, and they have integration with that. I was like really surprised. Even Alexa
But,
cannot identify this device.
but is it just because it's open source that so many people keep adding these devices?
Exactly, yes. So
Wow.
people keep adding integration to everything, and you just have to like start this app, connect all the app, and then you can also connect to your nearby grid to see like how much energy you have been using in
What?
your home. So it
Wow.
was like really amazing. I still need to go ahead and start my virtual machine because it shut down when we were traveling. But it was so nice, and I was like, oh, this is what we need. Like, and then you can buy a new light, and we don't have to like onboarding, right? Because it automatically detects. So if you have a new light, or do you want to connect it? You can just say okay, and then it's you are onboarded.
But don't these devices have to be in pairing mode or something normally to connect to?
So most of the devices actually have a Bluetooth. Bluetooth. So they have a sensor actually, which sends the signal like
Wow.
to your home assistant actually. And it was like really nice, all this onboarding, and then you can create entire map of your house. That's what my friend did, right? So he created the entire
Wow.
map: first floor, second floor, this room, this is your balcony, this is your kitchen, and then you can map lights, saying this light belongs to the kitchen, this light belongs to my garden, and then you can start like writing more automation on those. For example, it should switch on automatically after, let's say, during summer, it should switch on after 8 because you have enough daylight. And all those things can be automated.
Amazing. You can also probably read from some weather API when is the sun coming up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then wow, that's
It
amazing.
was there. Yeah, it was there.
Wow.
So,
I need to get in on this, especially because the onboarding cost seems so low now.
yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's just like a personal contribution to me, and I'm sure all those listening. I'm gonna go look at what's it called?
As Home Assistant.
Home Assistant. Okay, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
find this on GitHub and then play. Awesome. Thank you. You are famous for your activity in the Angular ecosystem, and it's crazy. We're like an hour in our discussion. We have not spoken about Angular at all, which I mean, you're just like there's so much more going on, but I think it would be a huge mistake. And what I'm trying to do, by the way, is just like get everything out of the way, so then we can focus on health in a few minutes here. But let's touch on Angular a little bit. Where is Angular now? Where is it going? Are you still super involved, or have you taken steps back because of the diabetes diagnosis?
To be frank, I'm not actively contributing to Angular anymore because, of course, the health thing which started. So I took a step back and said, okay, I wrote a blog post last year. I think it was, I don't remember even if it was last year or way before that. And then it got like 20,000 reads somehow on dev.to, and even on my website, it went like probably 5,000 and more. So maybe close to 30,000 reads on all platforms. So I'm thinking about writing a few more blogs. Maybe one I'm thinking about from last year, so I'll start writing it. But yeah, folks, I'm just, you know, once this health thing happened, I decided to say no to most of the stuff which is not important to me or maybe my family. So these things can wait, you know.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's also my approach to when, if and when we have children. My plan is just like, okay, everything else, no. We'll see where the podcast is. If enough people say, hey, I can't live without this, which I would be very surprised by, then we'll find a way to make it sustainable, even with bigger changes in life like that. But I think it's gonna change from sort of a default yes, which it is kind of now. Like now, how it works is people like you, right? They'll just text me like, "Hey, I want to come on the podcast. Cool, let's do it." Or people will say, "Hey, speak at my conference." I'm like, "Sure." I don't apply to conferences anymore, except maybe one. I won't name it, but usually it's I'll say yes, I'll do it, whatever you want. I'm happy to support. But this will change, I think. Just kind of like for you, you if you receive a thing that is the new most important thing, speaking of course in an earthly sense, then it takes precedence. So I appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about health. Man, I'm so excited about this because I love health. I literally just came back from the gym, and I set all kinds of personal records today. And the context is, I'm super thankful for. I feel stronger than ever. In fact, objectively by measurements, I am stronger than ever, at least for me. And I'm thankful because I was sick for like a week. I had a throat infection, and you're not supposed to do exercise. If anyone's listening, you're not supposed to do exercise when you're sick, first of all. And so I had to take a break and slowly watch all my numbers come into place. And I do measure everything, so I know like when I'm recovered, how much I'm recovered, how much to push it. I know everything is like quantified. And so today all the numbers looked good except one, and that's because I still have a bit of a cough. And so I said, okay, let's go lift weights. And man, Santosh, like the numbers today, I came back stronger than ever. And then this is very important for people to hear, because like you adapt and get stronger after you rest. Like resting is part of the process that makes you stronger. And previously in my history, I would train too hard and not give my body the chance to actually come back stronger. And so then I wondered, oh my gosh, I'm getting weaker. Why? It's because I didn't recover, right? And so anyway, that's just me enjoying my sort of fitness journey. But you, I remember, man, you used to struggle. You said this, right? You used to struggle to run 3 kilometers. Which is like, I don't know, like 1.5, maybe a mile and a half. To now you've just completed your first half marathon. Incredible. Let's talk about it, especially from a developer perspective. You mentioned, okay, you had diabetes type 2. And for those wondering, type 1 is an autoimmune condition where your immune system attacks insulin creating cells in your pancreas. So you just can't produce any insulin at all. Insulin is important because sugar is toxic to your nervous system, and so insulin sort of reduces the sugar, and so you basically like get paralyzed, because sugar eats your neurons if you have type 1 diabetes, and so you need artificial insulin for that. Type 2 is not an autoimmune condition, but still you just don't respond. Your body produces insulin, you just don't respond to it, which is kind of what happened to you, Santosh. So you have this type 2 diabetes, and you decided, okay, I need to take my health into my own hands. It was hard to run 3K. Now you're doing 7x that much. What are some lessons you learned? What's the protocol? What can people take as developers to get there themselves if they want to?
The first thing, when I think this thing happened, right, and I came, my doctor said, like, do you walk? That was the question. And I was like, maybe, I mean, sometime. And she said, do you exercise? I said, no. And then she said, yeah, then you have to do something. And I was like,
wow.
It's like shocked. Like I was like, oh, I said, like, I sometimes lift weight. So I used to like lift weight and do some push-ups and everything. But she said like even that makes you more weak to diabetes, because when you lift weight or when you actually do push-ups, your body, I think if you have sugar, you should not be doing more weights. That's what she ended up saying, right? Probably it might be related, or maybe I misheard something. But it was not helping. She's like, okay, if you're not moving, then you're doing something wrong. You have to move. Because she asked like what I do, and I said like I work as a software engineer, and then she's like, oh, then you probably sit on your desk all whole day. I was like, yes. And then I had to change something, right? And then I thought like, okay, let's start walking. And then the first question is how I'm going to get 30 minutes or 1 hour from my day, because we have habit of having this, right? I mean, where 30 minutes, okay, probably I'll do it tomorrow. Like this is what we do as a developer. We probably try to sit on our desk for 30 minutes without doing anything, rather than go ahead and run or walk. And that's something which I changed. I said, okay, whatever happens, I will like take that 30 minutes or 1 hour from my time. And I decided to do it in the evening. So because in summer we have more sunlight. It's sunlight still there till 10. So I decided to like start walking after 5 or 5:30 whenever I get time. So that's how it started. I said, okay, I'll have to do it. So I started walking, and I got bored. So I was walking and like, this is very boring. So I like tried to run a little bit and couldn't do even 500 meters. I was like, okay, run for 500 meters, walk, run, walk. And then I was doing like 5,000 steps or close to 7,500 steps a day. But then I realized that whenever I walk, I get bored. Whenever I run, I enjoy it more. So, just accidentally, I started like running. Of course, initially it was even hard to like run 3 kilometers. So I used to run a little bit, then relax, walk, then run. And eventually I started enjoying it because when I was running, I realized that I feel peace. Like my mind is empty actually. I'm not thinking about anything. And eventually it became a habit. And then, of course, I realized that, okay, I cannot push more because there was a time I started getting issues on my knee and my legs, and then I realized, okay, I have to take enough rest. One thing which you mentioned, right, taking enough rest, which is I think it's really important to take rest for in any kind of sports you do. So I reduced my like I started running rather than walking, but I reduced the number of days. So I started like doing 3 days a week, 4 days a week, depends upon how much I'm running, and making sure that I take enough rest, making sure that I invest in good shoes because that's also important. I also like this. I think I remember like when last year I think you're going to water stack right in Skopje. So I went there as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
last year, and I ended up running with Sam, one of my friend. He runs NGP. He used to run NGP. Now he gave this to the community to run. So he was there, and we ended up running together. And he was talking like talking about his one of his friend. Like sometimes you just like with conversation you learn a lot. So he asked me like, how much is your heart rate when we were running, because we decided to do 10K, but we ended up doing 8.5, I think, because I reached late. And then after a few kilometers, I think more than 5 kilometers, he asked like, what is your heart rate? I said it was around 135. And then he said like he has a friend who tries to push a lot, like he tries to match my speed, but his heart rate is going up. So you hear this conversation and you learn that the only person you are actually competing with is you. That you have to improve. It's not like someone is doing half marathon in 1 hour 40 minutes. You cannot do that from day one, right? You have to like build your stamina to reach there. So I stopped comparing myself with anyone else. Whenever I see some of my friends, I know one of my friend, he's in Belgium. He does like full marathon in probably 2 hours 20 minutes. Full marathon. We're talking about 42 kilometers.
Yeah.
And of course, he has been doing that for many years. That's why he is here. But many people start competing with, like, after seeing this data, right, on the internet. So the one thing which I learned early, that do not compare. Your body will reach that stage, but you have to build it on your own by not comparing with anybody else. You have to take enough rest. You have to make sure that you're doing it regularly. You have to make sure you stretch a lot, because in running, the most important part is stretch and rest. It's not only running. And even one of my friend who is in Barcelona, Ralph, he also like passes me very early when I started running. I think that was the time I was not looking at all the stats, right? My heart rate, or all this information which you generally see in the app. And he said like that time I was doing 5K, but my heart rate was like beyond 150. And he said like, oh, that's something you should avoid. I mean, try to manage your heart rate. And then I started like seeing all this data if I'm doing it more. And then I also realized that whenever my heart rate goes up when I'm running, it takes longer on my watch to actually see that when I'm available for next run, because it takes longer to recover. But if my heart rate was normal, I recover faster. So all these things which you have to keep in mind. A lot of people just ignore it. Okay, I'm running because this guy runs. Don't do that. See like why, because many people enjoy different kind of sports. Probably, maybe running is not for you. Maybe just do something else which you like more. People, it's not the only way to be active, right? As you said, you go to gym, so that's where you what you enjoy doing. Because probably I don't go to the gym because I don't enjoy it. I'm more into running, and then I get my I get into my zone, right? This is one thing which people often talk about. So when I run, I get into my zone that, after 2 hours of running half marathon, my mind is empty. I don't even realize when I completed or when I started my two hours long marathon, right? So those are the things which you should expect from exercise when you're doing it.
I love that. And I just want to clarify a couple things because there's people listening and they may hear things incorrectly. The advice from your doctor to don't do weights when you have excess sugar, generally, from what I know, is not sound because exercising any muscle will cause sugar to like go into the muscle, which is what you want. Muscle glycogen is made from sugar entering, and if sugar enters your muscle, it's not in your blood, so you're not going to have excess of sugar. It does the work of insulin, which is a good thing usually for diabetics. But of course, I'm not a doctor. I suggest checking with doctors. Do not listen to medical advice from this podcast. You said you described running so beautifully, and I can only echo that. I run a half marathon every Saturday, man, and it's like meditation. It's like joy, especially because I live in a very small city, and I live towards the east side. And so what I do is I get out my door and I just like run west for like 21 kilometers, and I see the entire city, but I pass the boundaries, almost the boundaries of the city. I go towards like the outskirts, the suburbs, the forests, the parks, and it's like, whoa, this is amazing. And then, it's just you and your thoughts. Or maybe you're listening to a podcast. Maybe you should listen to a long form podcast called Contagious Code when you run. But anyway, it's so special. And so I 100% relate to and echo that. You mentioned a few things that are so valuable for people wanting to get started. I think I just want to repeat because it's so important to like emphasize what you're saying. Comparison is a trap because you only compete against yourself yesterday. I think that's so important. You also said that stretching and rest are more important than actually running, which is very, very true because your body rebuilds and adapts like when you sleep the night after an intense effort. And so you have to sleep well and you have to recover well. I have some questions for you about this. You said investing in good shoes is important. Any tips there on shoe choice?
I got friend message he messaged me on actually X. So because there was a time my previous shoe was actually it was not good for running, I think. And when I was running, my knees actually were hurting. So I bought a knee pad like which you can wear, but it was not helping. I was not able to run like after 6 kilometers. So it was like so much pain. And then he messaged me, hey, there is a shop where you can go, and then they check your running pattern. They check your like your leg type, because some people may have that flat leg, right? So people have different kind of legs. So they check this, and then they recommend you some shoes based on your running pattern and everything. And I went there, so they recommended me a new shoe, which I'm wearing now. And then I was able to run longer. And then I stopped wearing this knee pad as well, because it was not putting the pressure on. The previous shoes actually was putting the pressure on my knee. When I used to land, it was actually putting a pressure here. So I mean on the knee pad. So it's very important. Always consult. If of course if you have some pain on your knees or everywhere, check with doctors first. But I was sure because it was happening because of running. So I went to this shop, bought this new shoe, and now I'm running half marathons without
Amazing. Do you know the make and model of the shoe? And I'm asking because I think there's a few running nerds who listen to the podcast. I for example, my go-to for this season is the Asics Nova Blast 25. It's a fantastic shoe, at least for me. It feels, first of all, like I'm walking on clouds, but second, it just fits my foot so well. Where half marathon every week, totally fine. Absolutely no issues at all. It also doesn't tear. Usually shoes will tear with enough use. But it's been so, and if, I'm not sponsored by ASICs. This is not a sponsored thing. It's just the Nova Blast 25 is just really good. Also, I've previously used the Brooks Adrenaline GTS. Oh, excellent shoe. But I'm curious if you have similar recommendations there or not yet.
I'm using New Balance
Nice.
1080 foam.
Okay.
So the shop recommended me two. One was Brooks and one was New Balance. I really liked New Balance, and then I started using it. And I think there are of course many other shoes which you can go for, but yeah, invest in a good shoe that will help you,
Yeah.
and your legs will thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned I was one of the things I was going to ask you was, do you have like some type of coach? But from your answers, it sounds like you have many coaches, and these are all your friends, like Ralph and stuff. Is that true? Is it just like completely crowdsourced?
So of course, I use Garmin. So Garmin has this functionality where you can have a virtual coach. So I mean that's the advantage
What,
of having a
like an AI coach?
No. So it's a person like who works probably for Garmin, but they are giving you tips online, right? And then they
Wow,
keep track
and you
of
get
all.
this, and you get this for free with
Yeah,
with
it's
the
free.
wow, that's
Watch,
awesome,
yeah.
man.
So I tried like when I started with 5K. So I started with a coach called Coach Amy. When you go to Garmin, you will be able to see multiple coaches. And now I started with a new coach. So it's like every week they give you some tips, like they publish it on the app for you, and then they keep track of like how many runs you have to do and how well you did. It's like all offline. You don't interact with this person, but they have this functionality which is really helpful. I mean, if you want to have a coach, if you can get a coach, that will be really great. For me, the problem is like I live in a village, right? There is no running club or something here.
Yeah.
I think the nearest one is Hamburg, but it's like 1.5 hours to reach Hamburg for me. So this helps. I mean, and then getting help from my friends, asking them for the tips. That helps.
That's awesome. I didn't know Garmin had this feature. And I guess since you don't really interact with them, you don't know if it's an AI or human. It could be one of those things where they
They have a
have
real
a
picture.
human.
No,
Okay, yeah,
they have a real.
well,
Yeah,
can you trust the picture though? I mean, it could be anything.
yeah, I thought so. Like I was like maybe they are not real person. Then there are some steps where they show you what exercises to do. So they have a videos where they're actually doing exercise and showing it to you that how you should be stretching or like how you will be relaxing after your run. So those are the things, and then I'm like, okay, this is a real person.
This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I experimented with Garmin for a while. I bought a Phoenix 7 Pro Solar or something like this, and
Oh, nice watch.
I hated it. I hated it
Oh,
so
okay.
much because it tracks because I'm a UI. I care about user interface
Oh,
a lot,
the UI
and
sucks.
geez, bro, the UI like it was so because I come from the Apple Watch, and Apple
Yeah.
is famous for UI, and like I used it, man. I thought, okay, I'll use it for a week and try. I had it for 3 days, Santosh, and I was like, I
Oh,
can't. The frame rate is like the refresh rate was like 2 frames a second. It was so bad.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. I wish
It's very bad.
if they invest in UI, I'm happy to continue. Oh, the battery life was
Yeah.
great though. This is the first time in my life I saw the battery life of a device was not a percentage, but it was in weeks. That's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
cool.
That's true. I mean, so I think I recharge only once in a week, and that's okay.
Yeah, my brother-in-law, he's a soldier in the army, and he has a Garmin also, and it's got the solar function, so he never charges. He's
Yeah.
just like out in the sun doing soldier stuff and just like stays on. Okay, so you're using your Garmin devices to measure everything, and you mentioned it's super important. You said what is your heart rate, what are your stats in the app? I'm assuming the Garmin app. And you said the app tells you if you're available for your next run, so it also helps you with recovery. I guess the question I'm trying to ask here is, what do you monitor and how do you interpret the data? Again, is this something the coach in the app does for you, or yeah, how do you know when to take rest, for example, or when to run?
So generally, I listen to my body as well, of course, but the app has a functionality where it shows like how much time it will take for your body to recover from your last run. So, for example,
Wow,
I did like half marathon yesterday, so it tells me now I still need more 46 hours to recover.
that's
Yeah,
how do we know how that's calculated?
I have no idea, but I thought like this is hard coded that this should be the time after you do half marathon, but no. maybe because I think it also takes your heart rate into consideration.
Yes.
The reason being,
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I was just going to say nothing is ever hard coded for human beings, right? Everybody's super different, and like your 5K is not my 5K, and
Exactly.
yours is probably better. So, yeah.
So, the reason I remember it because I did half marathon like just for practice a week before. So last Monday, I did a half marathon in my city, and it told me that I need to take 96 hours rest. And this time it was 60 hours because when I was running half marathon yesterday, my average heart rate was 135. So it tells me that you will recover quickly. But last time when I did for the first time, my heart rate reached till 155. So I think it takes all this into consideration and tells you like how much time. And uh, even I feel I can actually do 5K. I can actually do a 5K now if I want to. So because I think my body recovered really well from the previous run than the yesterday's run, probably because I was like running with like maybe I was breathing enough. And yeah.
Awesome. Can we I wish we get someone from Garmin on the podcast. I would love to hear about the science and technology and computing all of this. And the reason I would love to hear this is because like unlike I know a lot of people who use Garmin with great success. For example, Sarah Drasner, right? VP engineering at Google.
Yeah.
Same, she swears by Garmin. I have this disease where it's a disease of the mind where I have to know how this stuff is calculated. So and also the access I have to sports scientists and so on. I actually just calculate my own recovery using my heart rate data because I'll share. Then we'll probably put this in the longer episode about how to do sports as an engineer. But what I do every single morning is I calculate a few numbers. So 3 of them specifically. My heart rate variability, which is how frequently between beats does my heart change. So for example, if your heart rate is like 60 BPM, that it's not going to be like in 1 minute at the top of every second consistently. There will be variance in that 60 BPM. And that is the clearest indicator of how recovered you are or not. Meaning if it's like on the dot every second in the minute, then you're super stressed because your nervous system is keeping that time super consistent. That's a stressed situation. Whereas if you're more relaxed, then there will be variance. It will not be at the top of every second. It'll be like, yeah, maybe plus 1 second. Minus. And so it's the more relaxed your body keeps your heartbeat rhythm, the more relaxed you actually are, right? That's just how it tracks. So that's something I look at every single morning. I compute. So what I've done for myself, and again, this is why I said nothing is hard-coded. What I do for myself is I have a 60-day average. From that 60-day average, I take a standard deviation, meaning how much does it deviate standardly, how much variance is there, and I'll about half that standard deviation to find out, okay, this much variance means something is going on. And so if the HRV is like more relaxed by, I'd say, one of those or half of those standard deviations, I'm like, cool, I'm super relaxed. I can go hard. I can do like a marathon or a half marathon with super fast. Similarly, if it's less by half of those standard deviations, then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take it. Anyway, all that to say, there's a lot more I could say in like a long form episode, but this is probably what Garmin is doing sort of automatically, so people don't have to do it manually like me. And I'm so here for that. And so this is how you know, okay, in about a few hours you'll be ready for your next run. I want to talk about the next run because you've been doing a lot, and you are. Do I understand correctly? You're planning to do another half marathon this year in a couple of months.
I was doing. I was supposed to do one more, but I registered for one more yesterday.
What?
Yeah.
So you're doing. Okay, you're doing 3 this year.
Yeah.
So my goodness. Okay, so you just finished one in May. The next one is that in July?
It's in June, end of June. So it's in Hamburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are events you sign up for. You get a badge. You do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even now, my wife wants to do 5K, so she's like, okay, I'll also register.
It's so cool to hear this, like this story of recovery and so on. So in some ways, I'm curious. This may sound disrespectful. I intend not to sound disrespectful, but I've heard people say things like, my diagnosis of this disease was one of the best things to ever happen to me, because it showed me I was sick, but also I've never been this fit and this better. Do you feel like that tracks, or not?
100%. Like, of course, it changed a lot. Of course, the first change which I saw was my confidence. Like, we discussed about this, right? The burnout and everything which I went through.
Yeah.
And suddenly my confidence was like, oh, I'm really good person. I'm really good engineer. I got my confidence back, and which helped me in my promotion. I would say before like getting diagnosed, I was still considering whether I should go for promotion or not, and I was not 100% sure. But like this gave me a boost that I'm doing what I'm doing is right. And then health wise, right? I was like, I'm about to be 39 now in a few months, and then I still feel like I'm in 30s because my body is like very much active. I can sleep for 7 hours and I feel fresh, which was not happening earlier. So many things which has changed. Thanks for like finally getting diagnosed.
Incredible. Like, knowing unlocks so much, and I feel so much the same way. Not that I have diabetes, I have a bleeding condition, but being able to treat it and then manage it, oh man, it's amazing. Santosh, you're a community guy. You say, I like people, I try to be nice to people, I talk to people, and so of course you don't just enjoy this yourself, but you launched devswhorun.dev, which is basically just sharing this with developers. I'm super excited about that. Can you talk about that? There's the story of launching it, how it's doing today. I saw that there's 99 people on there now, almost 100. Maybe I'll be the 100th. And it's sort of like bridging your personal and professional passions. Tell us about devswhorun.dev.
I mean, so it actually, the idea came last year when I started doing it more, and then I thought, okay, why not to actually have a platform where I can connect. Maybe I still like I couldn't get much time to work on it, but the idea was having a platform where I can involve more community members who do conferences and meetups to arrange this kind of runs, right? Maybe virtual runs or maybe in person. If there is a conference happening, you can form a group and you can go for a run together, because that's what I've seen. A lot of people are interested in doing that, but they don't know like who is going for a run, and maybe people can sign up together and go for a run. So that was the idea. We are still as I was traveling, and then this promotion thing was going on. So, but yeah, we'll start working on it again. I have a friend who is also interested in doing it. So we'll launch more. Right now, it's just a page, and then there is a Discord server where I keep sharing like the things which I do. But yeah, I mean, you know how Discord server works, right? So most of the time they're not people are not active. They're just listening to it. But I'm happy to see like I was able to make some of my friends actually motivate them to actually run. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so they're running. One of my friend Amandeep, I think you met Amandeep last year when in React India, right? He was with me. So Amandeep is now very active into running. So
that's awesome.
And then one of my friend Ankit, he also got into running now. He is also doing 10Ks. He did like a 10K few last month, I think. Yeah. So, and even one of my friend who lives nearby, and we meet regularly. So he also started taking it more seriously now. He's saying, okay, I'll do 5K next time. So good to see like people getting inspired as well, because you know everyone keeps complaining they don't have time, but sometimes they just look at others. If this guy is able to do it, probably I can do it as well. And you just need to. I mean, so I remember like I post this on LinkedIn purposely because a lot of people just relate your work life to work. This is also your life, right? I mean, and sometimes people just don't do it because they see people always talking about work. So when I thought of posting this on LinkedIn, the only thought was, let's share it. Probably people will get motivated and they will do it as well. Of course, I got hate comment as well. Like there was a guy who says, this is not Strava. Probably you posted it on the wrong platform. Block and move. That's what I do. That's what I did. I was like, okay, block this guy. But I get messages from people saying, hey, thanks for sharing it, because this also motivates us that there is more beyond life or more beyond work. We should be actually investing in our health. And thanks for sharing your journey, that how you started from diabetes and then you reached here. Generally, people don't do that.
How did you motivate your friends to asking for a friend, right? Because I know people who would benefit from running or weightlifting or exercise, but the motivation isn't there. And I don't want to be the kind of person who's like, hey, do it. That's not going to help anything. So, like, what's the best way to for those listening who are maybe enjoying an active lifestyle, who are definitely healthier than they would be without it? What's the best way to sort of share the good news of and motivation of running with people?
Once they see difference in you, they will think that okay, this probably it can be the same with them, right? When I was 75 kg year before, right, and now I'm 62, 61, 62. So they see like, oh, this guy was like little bit not fat, but yeah, it was like on the edge that where I was supposed to be overweight and then on the edge. And now he's like really fit. He looks younger. And when people see this difference, they automatically start thinking about, okay, I can do that as well, probably. Seeing, right? That's important. And that's what happened with my post on LinkedIn. People, I used to share my photos as well. It's not like just the running data. And they saw the difference. I even posted like before and after photos. This is how I used to look like 82 kgs in 2019 or 2020, and now I'm 62 kgs. So people just sometimes just see those and relate it. That's it.
Amazing. I love this, and I love how your focus you mentioned is ultimately like maximum zoom out is sustainable community impact. With emphasis on sustainable, right? Because oftentimes it's great to have community impact, but if it's not sustainable, then it's going to be much more limited. There's a reason, for example, in the airplane, they say, hey, if we lose cabin pressure, then put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because then you sustain yourself so you can help your daughter. I'm I have so much respect for making community impact, making work sustainable through exercise. And I think you do that so well. The last time we spoke, you mentioned your motto in life is to cherish what you have. Because we often have more than we think we have. And if we listen to the voices around us in the world, we can cultivate some type of scarcity mindset where we're earning a tech salary, some are earning like six figures, and you still think, oh, I don't have enough. Which, to be fair, if you live in San Francisco, I recently found out $140,000 a year is not enough for a family of four. That's below the poverty line, believe it or not. But regardless, like if you're living, let's say Germany, and you earn a decent salary, you could still fall into this trap of like, I don't have enough. You come from the slums, and you said, hey, we always have something to give, and so cherish what you have. I'm curious, in the context of all that we've discussed, diabetes and sustainable impact and all of this, how does that tie in? Does it update itself in the context of running? Because you have health now, you didn't have it before, but you still had something to give. So I'll let you sort of like reconcile this mantra with the newfound stuff that happened since our last episode.
That still stays, right? I mean, I always believed in that. Okay, I reached this stage like few years back when I was in India, where I started making I started saving like money, and the same stuff applies to my health now. That I see that okay, now I'm at a stage where I can probably motivate other people, and whenever they reach out for something, I just give them some tips. The first tip is always go to doctor. Never listen to anybody, right? I mean, because there are so many fake social media influencers as well, in today's world. So always listen to your body first, consult a doctor, and then reach out for the help. That's what I always believe. And when it comes to the health, apart from that, of course, but yeah, I mean, the mantra still stays that okay, everybody has enough to give, and I'm grateful that I have now good health, right? So of course, if I'm in good health, I can probably do more. I can what if I mean related to whatever, right? Work or family or we went for a vacation. It was one of our longest vacations so far. I mean, at the end, I went broke almost because my credit cards they were on the limit, and
Wow.
then last day we decided okay, this is enough. So then we were back, but yeah, it was fun. I mean, we ended up enjoying our holidays as well.
Awesome. Are you debt free by any chance?
So, yeah, now I'm
That's awesome, bro. And then what's your VO2 max? I think Garmin gives you this, yeah? I'm
yeah,
curious about this number.
it was 53 yesterday.
53,
Yeah.
53. Oh my gosh, Santosh, that's that's well above the average for men your age, which is and that to US average, which as Indians we tend to be less fit, and so wow, that's really really awesome, man. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with that, listen, Santosh, I can't begin to emphasize the value you've provided today. I mean, we talked about so much. So we talked about what it takes to become a staff engineer. We talked about staying in a job for as long as you have, home automation, living your best life, responding to illness in a way that is growth oriented, not shrinking into despair. You've given us so much to chew on, and every single time I talk to you, there's always value. So, on behalf of myself and all the listeners, man, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this with us today.
Thank you, Tejas. I mean, your story is amazing. Of course, that is something which inspires me a lot. So thanks for sharing everything on the internet, because that's, I think this is what not many people do. Uh, People need those stories to get inspired, I think. And thanks again for sharing that.
Thank you for joining my discussion with Santosh Yadav. I hope you're as inspired as I am. If you are maybe new to exercise, I hope you feel this as motivation, as your sign from the universe to pick it up, to learn, to grow. There's a community, devswhorun.dev. There's this podcast. Everybody's rooting for you. We want you to be successful and healthy and live your best life. I also hope you have practical takeaways, useful things you can use to level up your career, to go from engineer to senior to staff to principal and so on. I also hope you're able to understand now if management is perhaps something for you, or if you'd rather just stay an individual contributor. Finally, as Santosh has said, I cannot overstate the value of community and other people. So if you maybe haven't been talking to people, if you've been sort of socially withdrawn, I'd encourage you to try. Because everything is indeed better together. Speaking of being together, you can find Santosh. His links to socials are in the show notes. You can find him on X. He also has a tremendous newsletter that's linked in the show notes as well. Please do find him, follow up with him, mention, hey, I want to talk to you more from the podcast. He's a welcoming, decent person, as you've heard, and I'm sure he would enjoy that interaction. If you're learning from and or enjoying the content here, then a great way to support it with no cost to you at all is to share it with your friends on social media or otherwise. If you're watching on YouTube, then if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would also signal like, hey, this is something worth paying attention to. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then leaving a review. Any review up to 5 stars would also help tremendously. Ultimately, this is for you. I don't gain much from this at all. I do want to create resources that will outlive me and benefit more people over time. So if that's something you'd love to get behind, I'd love your support. Finally, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. And most importantly, thank you for your interest in engineering.